Hello. Today General Hospital will reveal Lulu had always been proud of her unwavering devotion to truthfulness, believing firmly in its strength and clarity. She carried herself with integrity, never once contemplating the possibility that she might someday find herself cornered by her own carefully guarded secrets. Her children, especially Rocco, had always been her guiding light and deepest pride, symbols of her commitment to honesty and transparency. In Lulu's eyes, a good mother was one who shielded her children not through deception but through openness, one who allowed no secrets to fester beneath the surface. This had long been the foundation upon which she built her life, a fortress she believed to be impenetrable, until now. Brook had patiently waited in the shadows, carefully plotting a meticulous revenge against Lulu. Driven by bitterness stemming from years of rivalry, jealousy, and emotional wounds left untreated, Brook had finally identified Lulu's most vulnerable spot. The revelation she harbored, cruel yet undeniably potent, was the secret Lulu desperately hoped would never see the light of day, that Lulu had not actually carried Rocco herself. It was Britt who had given birth to Rocco, not out of kindness but as a pawn in a manipulative game to trap Patrick, using stolen embryos originally belonging to Lulu and Dante. Lulu had learned the truth long ago but consciously chose to bury it deeply within her, convinced that silence was necessary to protect her son's fragile world. But now, with calculated precision, Brook was dismantling that carefully constructed reality, forcing Lulu to confront the past she believed she'd safely locked away forever. As Lulu fought desperately to preserve her outward composure, maintaining the image of an unbreakable mother whose love for Rocco was unconditional, Brook orchestrated another devastating blow. She refused to spare Lulu even a brief moment of respite, aiming straight for the heart of her former friend's carefully structured family narrative. Gio, whom Lulu and Dante had welcomed warmly into their lives, trusting him implicitly as a valued friend and confidant, was revealed to be Brook and Dante's biological son. Lulu, driven by righteous indignation, exposed this truth publicly, assuming she had finally reclaimed the moral high ground. However, she underestimated the cunning and ruthlessness with which Brook could retaliate. Rather than retreating, Brook launched a retaliatory strike, mercilessly exposing the unsettling truth behind Rocco's birth. This revelation shattered the illusion of perfection Lulu had tirelessly crafted, leaving her vulnerable, wounded, and exposed. Brook preparation was meticulous, precise, and devastatingly thorough. With Marco's unwavering support, she navigated complex legal records, pulling strings, calling in favors, and slowly unraveling the delicate threads of Lulu's hidden past. Each document, each carefully preserved record, became ammunition loaded into a gun aimed squarely at Lulu's carefully maintained facade. Brook understood well the profound damage this revelation would inflict, particularly how it would deeply affect Rocco, who had always been sheltered from the harsh reality surrounding his birth. Her intent was clear, to dismantle Lulu's credibility as a mother by illuminating the secret that had lingered silently within their family for years. When Brook finally dropped the bombshell, Rocco's world instantly fractured. His trust in Lulu was built upon absolute honesty, and learning that his mother, the woman he revered and trusted without reservation, had concealed such monumental truths, left him feeling profoundly betrayed. Lulu's intentions had always been pure, motivated solely by a desire to spare Rocco unnecessary pain, but that did little to comfort a heartbroken and confused young boy. The idyllic family dynamic that Lulu had fought so fiercely to protect had now become a chaotic whirlwind of anger, distrust, and heartache, leaving Rocco adrift in emotional turmoil, searching for truths that felt agonizingly elusive. For Dante, the revelation compounded an already complex situation. Torn between his loyalty to Lulu and his growing emotional bond with Gio, Dante felt helpless in the face of the devastating familial crisis unfolding around him. Brook ruthless tactics had not only harmed Lulu but threatened the stability of his relationship with Rocco. He struggled with feelings of guilt, regret, and anger, furious at Brook for weaponizing their personal history but equally frustrated by Lulu's silence. Dante's turmoil deepened as he realized he'd unknowingly played a role in enabling Brook destructive agenda, his past decisions now contributing to his present heartache. Amid the escalating chaos and emotional wreckage, Britt's unexpected return to Port Charles was a game-changing development. She was no longer the manipulative woman from the past, driven by selfish desires, but instead sought redemption through truth and transparency. Recognizing the devastating impact Brook Lynn's revelations had inflicted, Britt stepped forward, intent on clarifying the reality of Rocco's conception and birth. Armed with irrefutable evidence, Britt publicly confirmed Lulu's innocence, emphasizing that Lulu's silence had always been an act of protective love rather than malicious deceit. Britt's revelation shifted the narrative dramatically, reframing Lulu from villain to victim in the eyes of many, but the damage inflicted upon Rocco's sense of identity had already taken root. Brook Lynn began to realize that her vendetta, initially motivated by personal pain and bitterness, had spiraled dangerously out of control. Her calculated attack had not only tarnished Lulu's reputation but irreversibly altered the lives of those she once claimed to care about, particularly her newly discovered brother Gio. Gio, horrified by his sister's willingness to exploit family bonds for revenge, distanced himself emotionally, further isolating Brook Lynn. Her single-minded pursuit of vengeance had left her increasingly alone, having alienated nearly everyone around her. Meanwhile, Lulu grappled with an overwhelming mix of guilt, heartbreak, and defiance. Her belief in truth had guided her life, yet now it seemed to have become her enemy. She found herself trapped between her desire to repair her relationship with Rocco and her growing resentment toward Brook Lynn for orchestrating the exposure of deeply personal secrets. Lulu knew that the emotional wounds inflicted upon her family would take years, possibly a lifetime, to heal. Despite Britt's attempt to clarify and soothe the situation, Lulu understood that the bonds of trust shattered by Brook Lynn's revelations could never be fully restored. In the end, the intricate web of deception, betrayal, and familial manipulation revealed a stark truth: secrets, no matter how benevolent their intention, carried immense power to devastate. Lulu had always believed transparency was the bedrock of genuine relationships, but her choice to remain silent had ultimately undermined everything she held dear. As she stood amidst the ruins of her carefully constructed world, Lulu began to question the boundaries between protecting those she loved and the inevitable pain caused by the revelation of painful truths, a lesson learned at an extraordinarily high cost. Rocco had spent his entire childhood enveloped in the warmth and protection of Lulu's unconditional love. His early years were marked by an effortless trust in his mother, whom he saw as the unshakable foundation of his world. Lulu had been more than just a mother; she was his confidant, his guide, and the one person he always believed would stand by him through any storm. Until now, it had never once crossed Rocco's mind that the woman he cherished most might harbor secrets. Especially not secrets capable of completely altering his sense of self and his understanding of where he belonged in the world. But when Brook Lynn, driven by a calculated desire for revenge, finally unleashed the truth she had meticulously uncovered, Rocco's life shattered with a brutal suddenness that left him reeling. The revelation that Lulu had never actually carried him in her womb, that he was instead born through Britt, a woman he barely knew and had always regarded with distant confusion, struck him with a visceral force. This was no minor detail or trivial oversight. It was an earth-shattering discovery that instantly unraveled the narrative of love, trust, and honesty upon which his life had been carefully built. As he absorbed the news, Rocco found himself gripped by an overwhelming sense of bitterness, confusion, and betrayal. He felt a gnawing emptiness, as if a part of his identity had suddenly vanished, leaving him adrift without a clear sense of who he truly was. Britt, in his eyes, had always seemed remote, distant, a name whispered among adults in cautious tones filled with vague unease and suspicion. To realize that this mysterious figure, this stranger who existed merely on the periphery of his life, had carried him inside her, who had been the one to physically bring him into the world, filled Rocco's heart with a profound sense of alienation. Yet what hurt Rocco even more deeply was the realization that Lulu, the woman he revered, adored, and trusted without reservation, had deliberately chosen silence over honesty. It wasn't just the secret itself, but the nature of Lulu's concealment. The fact that for years she had carefully maintained the illusion of total transparency, leaving him blissfully unaware of a truth he now felt he had every right to know. Her intentions, undoubtedly born from love and protection, felt to him like a deeply painful betrayal. Each day spent in ignorance now seemed to him like a web of lies, each embrace and every comforting word suddenly suspect. The unspoken truth he now grappled with had become a heavy burden that poisoned his memories and filled his mind with doubt about every interaction they'd ever shared. Rocco's emotional turmoil deepened with every passing moment. He struggled to reconcile the love he still felt for Lulu with the intense resentment and confusion threatening to overwhelm him. Questions tormented him relentlessly. Why had Lulu hidden the truth for so long? Did she not believe he deserved honesty? Was he somehow different, less worthy because of the strange circumstances surrounding his birth? His sense of belonging, once secure and unquestioned, fractured into countless, irretrievable fragments. The safe haven he had taken for granted now felt utterly compromised, leaving him emotionally isolated in a world suddenly unfamiliar and frightening. Dante, meanwhile, found himself plunged into yet another agonizing dilemma, torn by complex emotions of his own. Only recently had he been forced to confront the reality of Gio being his biological son, a revelation that already strained his emotional equilibrium and reshaped his understanding of family. Now, with the crisis surrounding Rocco exploding, Dante faced a fresh wave of anguish and despair. Watching Rocco suffer so intensely shook Dante to his core, leaving him helplessly trying to comfort a child whose pain ran deeper than he himself could fully grasp. Rocco's torment became Dante's as well, a burden that weighed heavily on his heart and conscience. Simultaneously, Dante grappled with rage directed squarely at Brook, a woman whose motives had shifted far beyond reasonable grievance into ruthless vindictiveness. To Dante, Brook's calculated attack on Lulu's deepest secret was nothing short of cruel, her willingness to destabilize an innocent child's life in pursuit of revenge utterly inexcusable. Her actions did more than expose hidden truths, they ruthlessly undermined the very stability that Dante and Lulu had fought tirelessly to maintain. He felt trapped between loyalty to Lulu, his innate responsibility toward Rocco, and the complicated emotions he now carried for Gio, emotions shadowed by Brook's destructive intentions. Even more painfully clear to Dante was Lulu's emotional fragility. His once strong and resilient partner was now visibly teetering on the edge of an emotional collapse. Lulu had fought so fiercely to shield Rocco, to preserve the sanctity of their family unit at any cost. Now, seeing her crumble beneath the weight of Brook's revelations was devastating. Dante watched helplessly as Lulu's composure fractured, her eyes betraying a sorrow far beyond words. His love for her remained steadfast, yet he was deeply aware that their lives could never again return to the relative innocence they once knew. As Dante navigated these emotionally treacherous waters, he found himself questioning every choice they had made, every secret they had chosen to protect, and every boundary they had established between honesty and kindness. He wondered if the lies they told themselves, however noble the intention, had inadvertently caused more harm than any truth could have inflicted. In the face of this mounting crisis, both Dante and Lulu found themselves forced to confront the devastating consequences of their choices. Rocco's pain was a stark reminder that even well-intentioned silence can wound just as deeply as outright deception. The family bonds they'd relied upon were now frayed beyond recognition, the trust they once considered unbreakable now tested almost beyond its limit. In this chaos, Dante and Lulu knew they had no choice but to face the painful truths head-on, knowing that only openness and honesty could offer any chance of healing. Yet they also recognized that the scars left behind by Brook's revelations, particularly the wounds suffered by Rocco, would not easily fade. Their path forward would be difficult, shadowed by regret, resentment, and the harsh lesson that secrets, no matter how lovingly kept, inevitably exacted a profound cost, a price paid by every heart involved, especially by the innocent ones caught in their wake. Rocco had always experienced his childhood as a series of comforting certainties, rooted deeply in the unwavering love and security provided by Lulu. From the earliest days of his life, he had found solace in her arms, an environment so stable and nurturing that he never once felt a reason to question its authenticity. Lulu's love, after all, had been his anchor, the dependable core around which his entire universe revolved. She was more than simply a mother, she was the voice of reason that soothed his fears, the protector who guarded him from harm, and the embodiment of truth he had trusted implicitly. His innocence remained intact because Lulu had carefully curated a world free from confusion or deception, fostering an unbreakable bond of trust between them. This deep trust had built a wall of emotional security around Rocco, shielding him from life's uncertainties and any potential disruptions that might unsettle his sense of identity. Thus, the shocking revelation unleashed by Brook. That Rocco had not been carried by Lulu, but by Britt, someone distant, enigmatic, and utterly removed from his emotional landscape, struck him not merely as a revelation, but as an assault on everything he had previously believed to be true. In the immediate aftermath of Brook's devastating disclosure, Rocco's emotional landscape was transformed into a chaotic battleground of confusion and distress. Suddenly, the comforting narrative of his own origins crumbled before his eyes, leaving him grappling with feelings of betrayal and profound disillusionment. Britt had always been a peripheral figure in Rocco's life, rarely discussed openly, yet always casting a shadow of mystery whenever her name was mentioned. The thought that this enigmatic woman, whom he regarded as little more than a passing acquaintance at best and an uncomfortable mystery at worst, had physically brought him into the world filled him with a deep sense of alienation. It felt as though he was suddenly disconnected from the very root of his existence, stripped of a fundamental truth he had assumed was his by right. However, what inflicted the most severe wound upon his heart was not just the unsettling reality of his birth, but the knowledge that Lulu, the person he trusted most, had actively concealed this from him. Lulu's silence, carefully maintained through years of daily interactions, tender conversations, and meaningful exchanges, now appeared to Rocco as an elaborate and painful deception. Every comforting embrace and reassuring smile now became suspect in his troubled mind, leaving him unsure of what had been genuine and what had merely been an effort to keep him oblivious. The emotional pain of this betrayal seeped into every memory he shared with Lulu, tarnishing their once pure bond and leaving him questioning the sincerity of every moment of their life together. For Dante, the emotional shockwaves rippling outward from Brook's revelations posed yet another profoundly troubling dilemma. Dante had only recently been thrust into emotional turmoil by the discovery of Gio as his biological son, a revelation that complicated his family dynamic significantly, but one he was slowly learning to accept. Just as he was coming to terms with the complexities surrounding Gio, Dante suddenly found himself confronting another, even more painful crisis involving Rocco. Watching his beloved son navigate such devastating emotional pain left Dante feeling utterly helpless and powerless. His fatherly instinct to protect Rocco, to shield him from hurt, clashed violently with the realization that he was entirely unable to undo the damage caused by Brook's revelations. Dante grappled internally with overwhelming guilt and anger, his fury toward Brook matched only by the helplessness he felt at being unable to spare Rocco from this profound trauma. Moreover, Dante recognized that Brook's actions were not merely impulsive or spiteful but calculated, deliberate attempts to dismantle the carefully constructed stability that Lulu had created for their family. He was simultaneously appalled and saddened by the realization that Brook was willing to inflict deep emotional scars on a child simply to satisfy her own vendetta. Dante's anguish intensified further as he watched Lulu, the woman he had once believed could weather any storm, begin to crumble emotionally under the weight of her perceived betrayal. The deep lines of sadness etched into her face were a painful reminder that this crisis threatened not only Rocco's sense of self but Lulu's own sense of worth and identity as a mother.